I've been looking for a 9 to 5 job because sometimes there are periods where, book sales aren't that great. And the last year, my book sales, they haven't been what they were a couple years ago. And I've been looking for a 9 to 5 job to supplement my writing. And what I'm finding when I go to interviews is, just I find a lot of people who are extremely unprofessional and extremely rude. And what they don't understand is that it's not only the potential candidates um, has to put a best foot forward and make a good first impression. The employer themselves have to put a best foot forward and give the candidate a good first impression. And what I find with a lot of employers that I have run into over the last couple of years is, I run into these people who are extremely rude, again, extremely unprofessional, and they don't make their business look good. And they don't understand that what they do really reflects on them. I mean, I've run into everything from surly receptionists, just giving me attitude when I come into the building, to interviewers. Like I had an interview, it was for a civil service job, and literally everybody from the human resources department had an attitude. And one person in particular, this African American woman, she was just literally nasty. She was just angry, surly, and she went out of her way to be extremely nasty to me. Um, and she didn't understand. What she didn't understand is, this is my first meeting with you, and if you're not giving me a good first impression, and we're in the bit, if you're this nasty, and we're at the interview, I can only wonder what you're like on a regular day. And it was such a turnoff that I just literally walked out of that interview. And I said, I just threw my hands up and walked away. And I didn't have the money at the time. I've been unemployed, and the only way I make my money is through my books. And I had to chalk that up as a loss. And it was like one of those interviews that just disturbed me because this woman just had such an attitude, and then everybody else, because it was a group interview, and and she had the nastiest attitude, and then the other people around her had really surly attitudes, and I would try to ask questions, and I would get snappy answers and rolled eyes and sucked teeth, and it was one of the worst interviews I ever had. And then there were a couple of other civil service interviews I had the same problem, and people not asking good questions. You ask them a question. I mean, they ask you, like, what are you going to be doing 5 years from now? Or old questions like, tell me about yourself. These questions are obsolete, and a good interviewer who understands human resources knows you don't ask these type of questions anymore because they don't allow you to truly see a candidate's background or their skills. And there were other job interviews that I've gone on with private companies, the exact same, attitudinal issues and behavioral problems. But none were as bad as that one where I went to this group interview, and it was one of the worst interviews I ever went to. Um, no one wanted to answer questions. Everybody had an attitude, and it was one of the worst interviews I ever went on. The second thing that employers need to understand about interviews and not making yourself look bad is lying. And I went to an interview again a couple years ago. This was for an IT position. Now, they told me it was one job in this job description that they sent me in the mail when I went to interview. But then when I went to the interview a couple days later, all of a sudden the job description gets rewritten on the day of. And this is extremely unprofessional, and it makes your company look bad because it makes you look like you're a bunch of flyers. And that does not foster well for a long-term relationship. Again, if this is like what you're like when I first meet you, what are you going to be like when on a regular day or when there's a crisis situation? If you're behaving like this now, I can't I can't hope to think of what later would be like. And a lot of these employers don't see how their behaviors have a negative impact on them, and how oftentimes it can lead to bad word of mouth. Excuse me, close the window. They don't see how their negative behaviors have, again, a direct impact on what type of how things are. Because if you're on a job interview, this is my first meeting with you. This is my first encounter with you. Um, in a lot of cases, if you give me a bad first impression when I first meet you, what I'm thinking about, what is it going to be like to work with you? I mean, and this is something I've just run into. And when you have employers who are just rude when you just meet them, or you have employers who lie to you when you just meet them, you're realizing maybe I don't want to work here. Maybe I don't want to deal with this person because this is what they're like. This is their first impression. This is the first impression they're giving me. And it's also giving me a negative first impression of the work environment because if this is the representative of the group, if this is representative of the organization, then maybe I don't want to be a part of this organization. I mean, a lot of people don't understand what the big picture is and how their actions, have a direct impact on others and how that first impression just it can turn people off. And when I go to job interviews, when I would go to them, um, this is what would come out to me. I mean, I always look at interviews as a two-way street. I not the employer not only wants to get a person who's a good fit, but the candidate themselves wants to work in an environment that's a good fit for them. And when you have employees and HR people behaving in such unprofessional ways, it doesn't lead to a good look for the organization. It doesn't lead to a strong impression of the organization. And it's something that I really think a lot of employers need to take a look at. And they need to really start training their employees on things like that because this stuff it can really hurt your business long term, and it can keep you from getting good quality employees to work for you. There's a difference between a passionate professional and a guy who's just there for the money. And oftentimes, when you have these type of people working for you in HR or doing on the interview circuit, whether this is unprofessional, you wind up not getting the best candidates because the best candidates usually wind up walking away because they figure it's just not worth the grief. The experience that you're going to get, you want to get, because what you want when you go to work, you want to build up your skills. You want to get a good experience. You want to get good references. You want to have a positive work experience. If this guy or this girl who you're running into, like I did, on the first day the first is giving you this horrible first impression of your organization, then nobody who's top shelf is going to want to be there. And top shelf people really want to work with people who are professional, who understand what professionalism is, who understand that you only get one chance to make a first impression, and understand that, if this person can't treat a stranger with respect, then how are they going to treat me if I'm on their team? And again, these are things that a lot of employers don't look at because they think that they have leverage, but they don't see the bigger picture that you start attracting lower grade employees, candidates. You get people who really don't want to be there. You wind up getting people who don't have passion, who really don't care about their work and have no work ethic. These are the type of people, and you wind up really destroying your business long term. And this is what I've seen, and it's really something I think a lot of employers again need to think about before they go out and post listings for jobs, and really before they even start contacting candidates, because the way you act towards a candidate can mean a difference between this person accepting an offer or them just passing on you. And when I do things, I try to look at it that way. I try to look at it as a two-way street, especially like because I have to work with artists. I started working with artists this year, and I work. yeah, I started working with artists this year for book covers for the ISIS cover, and I had to have a good communication relationship. I had to be very professional, and I wanted to put a positive first impression out there, so I could not only get the artist to do the commission, but so that I could keep the relationship open because I want to work with the artist again, and I want to work with other artists because I want to have that positive reputation, that positive image, you know. And I want people to know that when you work with Shawn James, he's reliable, he pays on time, he's got good communication, um, he puts everything together. He gives me directions and instructions, and he gives me reasonable time to get work done. That's what I wanted to put out there as my professional image, and I don't see when I go out looking for work in a lot of cases. I don't see that when I go to some interviews, and that's really something that if you're a business owner, you really have to take a look at that and see how you're coming off to people, how your image is coming off to people, and how it's because what you're presenting is reflective of you. And what I've seen at a lot of job interviews is a lot of unprofessionalism that goes unchecked, and it's something that I try to look at. And when I'm trying to do business, I'm trying to be conscientious about it, and I'm trying to put the best image forward because I want people to look at my business, say, those SJS Direct books are the highest quality. Um, Service we get is very good. The books have positive images. The writing is really solid. The editing is very good. And I make efforts every day to try to improve the quality and try to make things better. And professionals, I mean, really want to have that professional image. And when you go to an interview and people don't show you that professional side and you just met someone, because I think about interviews, I always see job interviews and dating as the same thing. You want to put that best foot forward. I mean, if you're on a date, you want to put that best foot forward. And if this person's acting out and you just met them, you're not coming back for a second date. And if this person's acting out in an interview and you're not going to take the job offer because you already see what this is going to be. Just like I said before about the dating, you already see what this person is like, so you're not going to ask for a second date. You already see that the person has really really bad behavior. They have bad attitude. They're really rude and nasty. You're not going to want to spend time with this person. And same thing for a job. You're not going to want to spend years of your life with a dysfunctional individual or dysfunctional managers who don't even know how to act during a job interview. Um, that's all I have to really say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Um, I have lots of great books on Amazon. You can click the link in the description box. It's lots of fantasy and positive African American fiction, and many titles are just available for 99 cents. So